Hello, Westside 7th grade language arts students. You are in the right place. I'm Miss Graves. You've probably seen me in the hallway if you don't have me for English class. And today I am practicing something that I'm learning, and I'm hoping that you will practice something that you're learning as well. Right now we are working on nonfiction text, figuring out the text structure, coming up with the main idea, and today we're going to be working on summarizing. I'm going to be putting some skills together for you in a short video, and let's see how this goes. Stay with me. It could get interesting. I generally make a lot of mistakes during these videos, so bear with me. Let's see. Okay, let me go ahead and turn my camera around. Okay, this is the text that we're going to be working with today. It's nonfiction. It's relatively short, probably shorter than what you're going to be using in your language arts classes when we get closer to the test. It's called The Flooded City. I'm going to read and do my reader and thinker voice, and then we're going to be going to the silhouette head and using the silhouette head to figure out how do I summarize and find the main idea. Right now, I know I've been teaching my students that you can find the main idea by using the text structure. But sometimes it's just not that easy. You have some other thinking that you have to do. So I'm going to show you this other way of coming up with a main idea statement. Summary is very, very important to building our skills. And so I'm going to be teaching you summarizing. The flooded city. Venice is a very special city in Italy. What makes it special? Venice is completely surrounded by water. Okay, my thinker voice. I knew that Venice was surrounded by water, and I think it's super cool. I've seen it in all kinds of movies. I like a lot of action movies, and so they use Venice because it's sort of a complicated city that helps make the problem even bigger because they have streets and stuff, but they also have these water canals. Venice does have streets and roads like other cities, but Venice also has special waterways called canals. People use boats to move along those canals. Okay, I also always wondered how those buildings stay upright, you know? I mean, it sort of looks like the buildings are sitting right on top of the water, and I don't know if this piece is going to address that or not, but it is a thought and a question I have in my head. The people of Venice have always loved their city. Many people visit Venice to see the beautiful bridges and old buildings. There are hundreds of old houses, famous churches, and lovely fountains. It does look like a pretty nice place in those movies that I've watched. But the city of Venice is facing a problem. The tides are rising. Each day there are 2 high tides. Each day the water rises and covers streets and roads. The water comes up to the windows of the buildings. My thinker voice tells me that this really could cause a lot of serious problems. First of all, you wouldn't be able to travel the city and get to work or get supplies that you need. And it would damage a lot of your belongings. The problem is even worse when there are storms. Storms make tides even higher. The city of Venice could be completely flooded. I know here in the United States, if we flood, we can always go to higher ground, but I don't think Venice can do that. I think they're kind of landlocked. And so where in the world would you go? Scientists have worked to find a solution. They planned a set of 78 steel gates in the water outside of Venice. My thinker voice is wondering if it's kind of like a dam, how we can control water flow. These gates will be able to open and close. When the water is calm, the gates will be open. But when there are storms, the gates will rise and protect the city. Okay, I'm visualizing this in my head, and so my thinker voice is like, how huge are these gates? What's the engineering behind how these can work? Water is a very powerful source, so how could you open and close those gates? Not sure. Will the gates work? No one really knows, but the people of Venice hope that these gates will save their city from the high tides. Okay, that's the entire piece. So we're going to go to the silhouette head now, and we're going to put together the text. And then my thinker voice is going to kind of group together the information. That's what I have to do for summary. I have to look at how the information is grouped together. When you have a nonfiction piece, if it has subheadings, that's like little mini summaries throughout the piece. But it's harder when there are no summaries no subheadings, and you see that this piece is too short to have subheadings. Okay, I'm ready to collect some details from the reading. I'm just worried about my reader voice. I'll be doing my thinker voice stuff in just a minute. So, it talked about how Venice, Italy is surrounded by water at the beginning. They talked about how streets and roads, and they have canals too. They talked about how people love the city. They talked about how people visit the buildings in the city. They talked about how there were a lot of old churches and fountains. And so what I'm doing is I'm looking at these details and I'm trying to figure out what they all have to do together. How are these details related? Well, people are visiting this very special, people love the city. I'm going to keep regrouping my information. It's got streets, roads, canals. It's got churches and fountains, and people love to visit it. So now my thinker voice is looking at these details, and it's telling me, you know what? This place is unique. It's unique because of its architecture. Whoops, sorry, you can't see that. And it's really special, and it has a lot of tourism. So people go there because it's so unique. And so this grouping of information is really just about how everybody loves the place because of its uniqueness in architecture, okay? So this is my thinking about what these details have to do with. Moving on in the article, then they talked about how the water that surrounds Venice might be rising because of tides. When it's rising, it covers streets and roads. It has water all the way up to the windows and buildings. They talked about how storms make it worse. They talked about how Venice could be flooded. Continuing on in the article, I remember them talking about how scientists maybe have a solution. They have these 78 steel gates that could open and shut. And when storms come, they might close those gates. And then I remember at the end, I'm going to go back to the text again. I'm reading the end, and it says, will the gates work? No one really knows, but the people of Venice are hopeful. So I'm going to put that here too. People of Venice are hopeful. So now I'm looking at these details, and I just kind of put them on here in the order in which they happened in the article, and that's okay. If this bit of information really fit down here, I could add that here. I can move these Post-it notes around. So let me see that. Venice could be flooded. Well, no, I do think that belongs right up here. This is all about what's happening right now, okay? So I would take my little thinker voice and Post-it note, and these all have to do with the problems of the water. It seemed like these details had to do with what was so lovely about Venice because of the water, and now these details all have to do with the problems, okay? So, yes, the water is lovely, makes the architecture interesting, oops, but it's sort of a problem. Now let me go down here to these details. Okay, so if this is a problem, what's this stuff have to do with? Scientists, problem, solution. I bet this is problem, solution, text structure. But okay, I have to take a look at these details, and let's see if they all have to do with each other. When the storms comes, they close those gates. Yeah, this all seems to do with what they want to do to fix it. Now, this doesn't have to do with what they want to do. This is like in the future. They are hopeful. This is what they want to do to fix it. So let me get my thinker voice, and let me put here that it is a possible solution. And so this is going to go inside my silhouette head because it is my thinking about how these details all have something in common. How are they related? These all have to do with a possible solution. And then I've got this dangling idea over here. Nothing else kind of fits it. It just has to do with the fact that these people are hopeful. So when I'm trying to come up with a summary, do I add these details out here? No. No, I just take the grouping, my thinking about them, and use those for a summary. I don't want to list all these teeny tiny details, okay? These things are true, but I'm grouping them together because in a summary, we don't retell all the tiny details. We group them together and then use our own words and thinking these things to come up with a summary statement. Okay, I'm ready to come up with my summary. I took away all the teeny tiny detail post-it notes and now I'm only looking at the thinking post-it notes. I grouped these three together into one basic thinking, okay? Because I have three basic categories of information, I have three basic things I need to say in my summary. This does not have to be one sentence. One sentence is the main idea. I'm not coming up with a main idea statement. We know that's one sentence long. I'm coming up with a summary. Because I've got three different groupings of information, I can have three different sentences for my summary. So let's put it together right now. I can come up with any of these things to talk about first. It doesn't matter. I don't have to go in order. I can say scientists have come up with a problem to help save the beautiful architecture of Venice, Italy, because the water is such a problem. I can do any of those things. I can start in any one of these sections to come up with my summary. Okay, let's see how I put all three of my thinking post-it notes together in a summary. Scientists and the people of Venice are hoping to save the city from the problem they have with flooding, period. I didn't put the detail about what solution they have for the problem. I just put that they were. Now, could I put the plan of the gates? I could just put a general detail about the gates up here if I want to. I didn't. They would like to maintain, which means keep, the historic architecture. That's my summary. It's pretty straightforward. It's 2 sentences. I could have 3 sentences. If I was really working it, I could probably come up with 1 sentence, but that seems very wordy. So this is my summary. Now, how do I boil it down to a main idea statement, which is even smaller? Great question. Okay, here we are. I just wrote a summary of the entire piece. It's a pretty short summary because if you take a look, it's a pretty short nonfiction piece. That's not very long. So here's my summary. Now, main idea statement is even smaller than this. I take out some other tiny details and all I have is Venice is experiencing flooding and scientists have a solution. So I gave a little bit more detail here and boy, I narrow it down to 1 sentence for the main idea. So summary are my thinking post-it notes put together. Because I have 3 different sections of thinking post-it notes, I can have about 3 sentences. And main idea is always just 1 sentence. And it's just a summary even of all of that. Now you get to try it.